I don't know if you guys are aware. CNN showed us the stats right in the last few hours. They put it right up on the screen. What are the stats? What is the approval rating for Biden? It can't be that bad, right? It can't be like the worst of all time. That would be exaggerating, right? Or would it? Let's check it out.
Number. All right. A good or great president at the end of their terms. Well, Barack Obama, 52% of Americans thought he was a good or great president at the end of his presidency, 2017. Donald Trump, very much behind Barack Obama at 36%. But look at how low Joe Biden is. My goodness gracious, you can't really get lower than 25% in our polarized era, because the bottom line is there's going to be a bunch of Democrats who would say that Biden was a good or great president no matter what he did. But yet it's only a quarter of the country who believes that Joe Biden was a good or great president. It is the lowest number since AP Nork started tracking this back at the end of Barack Obama's second term. Bottom line is Joe Biden goes out a very unpopular man at the end of a 50-plus year political career.
It's so interesting. And there's so many questions too about, like, are we so more divided now than we were back in 2017? Is it Joe Biden? There's a lot there to chew on.
Yeah.
I do want you to talk us through Trump's popularity at this point.
Yeah. So if Joe Biden's numbers are at his lowest point, right, Donald Trump's are right near his top point. We have a little thing up here. I'm so tall, I was managed to able to actually bump it. Look at this. Trump's record favorable rating. You know, you go back 4 years ago, he was at 38%. Look at where he is today, 47%. That is the highest favorable rating Donald Trump has ever registered in an average of polls. So,
do you guys think that they know that why this is? Do you think they're legitimately confused? Because I know a lot of regular people, especially here in LA, they're totally confused by this. They don't want to believe these numbers. Do you guys think the media pundits, do you think they know what's happening here? Do you think they know that they're losing the narrative, that they're losing this ability to divide us and make us think Hitler just came into office, and that Joe Biden's a good man, very decent man, good friend, as Bernie Sanders once said, very good friend of mine, Joe Biden? Do you think that they know why this is happening? I do. I think they know. I think they don't want to have to report this, but you know what? You can throw Biden out now, and you can figure out a way to kind of keep this narrative of the good guys have to get back, get their shit together, and get things back in order. You can kind of maybe throw Biden out in the trash and try and figure out a way to reposition this narrative that we have to stop Hitler. I don't know how they're going to do it, because they have the least ratings ever at this point in their history. That's where they're at right now. That's where CNN is right now. I think there might be another minute or two on this. Let's see.
What we're dealing with is something very interesting, whereby, as I was saying, Joe Biden's at his worst point. Donald Trump is actually at his best point, being with this such a high favorable rating. One other little last thing I will point out, because I want to get to the forecast a little bit, is just take a look at this. Will Trump be a good president? In January of 2017, you saw 48% for Donald Trump. Look at where we are today. A majority expect that Donald Trump will be a good president. So expectations for him are quite high. We'll see if he's able to meet those expectations, Jessica.
Yeah. And
wow. That's I think that's kind of an honest report. I know they don't want to have to do it. I do think they know exactly what's going on. But again, there's a lot of confused people, and we know, right, like I said earlier, right here in LA, all over the country, especially in these blue states, especially in these big cities, they're confused as hell right now. They don't know what to think. They're just and you know, they've been brainwashed. They've been captured. Their minds have been captured, and I feel kind of bad for a lot of them, because they don't really know what's actually going on right now. Well, you want to know what's actually going on right now? This is the type of garbage that Fauci, that Biden gave us in the last 24 hours. If you guys didn't hear about this, he issued this on the 20th. This was literally yesterday, right before Trump was sworn in. This is a statement from Joe Biden. Our nation relies on dedicated, selfless public servants every day. They are the lifeblood of our democracy. Blah, 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 blah. General Mark A. Milley, blah, blah, blah. Dr. Anthony Fauci. So so he's saying in certain cases, some have even been threatened with criminal prosecutions. Threatened with what? The criminal prosecutions with a judicial system that you used against Trump. This is a threat against these people. Well, what are you going to do about it? Oh, and that also includes the entire committee to investigate the January 6th. So it's not just this General Mark Milley. It's not just Anthony Fauci. It's the entire committee. So he's saying we need to protect these public servants, and they do not deserve to be targets of unjustified and politically motivated prosecutions. Well, that's funny because I thought that if you go through the honest, trusted court system, the judicial system, it would take care of itself, right? If these are unjustified claims against them, wouldn't the system in place be able to take care of that? Why would you have to do this? It's very bizarre, very bizarre. So he gives a whole thing on Milley and serving our nation for 40 years, blah, 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 blah. Look, all the stuff he did. And then go down here to Fauci, second paragraph. For more than half a century, Dr. Fauci served our country. He saved countless lives by managing the government's response to pressing health crisis, including HIV, AIDS, as well as Ebola and Zika viruses. During his tenure as my chief medical advisor, he helped the country tackle a once-in-a-century pandemic. The United States is safer and healthier because of him. Okay, if you really believe that, let it speak for itself. Very strange that you have to put this letter out, tell us how great these people are, particularly Fauci, and then give this BS justification for why you're pardoning these psychopaths. Down to the second paragraph. This is why I'm exercising my authority under the Constitution to pardon General Milley, Anthony Fauci, and the members of Congress and staff who served on the select committee for the J6 hearings. If you go down to the bottom here, the assurance of these pardons should not be, the issuance of these pardons should not be mistaken as an acknowledgement that any individual engaged in wrongful doing, nor should acceptance be misconstrued as an admission of guilt for any offense. Our nation owes these public servants a debt of gratitude for their tireless commitment to our country. Wow. Holy wow. By the way, according to Wall Street Apes, and this is interesting to point out, we had the same thing when he pardoned his son Hunter. We saw the timeline. If you're wondering why Joe Biden chose the year 2014 for Anthony Fauci's pardon, it's because that's when Barack Obama and Fauci took over the Ukraine biolabs. Oh, that's another thing we're not allowed to talk about. The biolabs. 2014, the same year, the CIA took over the Ukraine government. So interesting that must be a coincidence, right? And then Ukraine falls into the civil war, February 2014. For the next 8 years, we have total chaos there until we finally push. You put Biden into office. Trump kind of delayed this process when his first term, but then you put Biden in. And then you push Putin for the invasion in February of 2022, 8 years later. But we weren't allowed to talk about the biolabs, which we know for a fact are there, and we're funded by all these companies. We know the whole thing, guys. We covered this on the show. So Fauci is directly connected to that. That's why his pardon begins the same time that Hunter Biden's begins, which is the beginning of 2014. He gets 11 years. Isn't that interesting? 11 years. What a random number. It's not like 10 years. It's 11 years. So bizarre. So bizarre. Wow. All that protection. Yep. And the dates match perfectly. So there you go. This is why he was pardoned for that 11 years. Same timeline as Hunter Biden. Let's look at Rand Paul, as we know, who really was the spearheader in Congress that went up against Fauci for the last 4 years. Let's see what he has to say about this. If there was any doubt as to who bears responsibility for the COVID pandemic, Biden's pardon of Fauci forever seals the deal. As chairman of the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, I will not rest until the entire truth of the cover-up is exposed. Fauci's pardon will only serve as an accelerant to pierce the veil of deception. And then let me take this banner off here. Yes, Fauci will go down in history as the first government scientist to be preemptively pardoned for a crime. Oh my God. And then he goes and does this. We thought that was it. And then this literally hit minutes before Trump swore in yesterday. Minutes before. Biden goes and pardons 5 more members of the Biden family. Holy crap. Throw Hunter in there as well. Obviously, we already knew that one. Wow. Why are they getting pardoned? It's so weird because I thought that when you preemptively pardon someone, that means they're guilty. I mean, the media must be going crazy over this, right? I mean, they must understand how ridiculous and how incriminating this is, right? Because this is what they used to say 4 years ago. This is what the media used to say. Let's watch a few of this. If somebody put this together, gotta watch a couple of these clips just to remind you how the media spun this and how they're spinning it now and pretending this is totally standard, totally normal. Let's see what they did 4 years ago when Trump was, and let's be clear, considering preemptive pardons. He didn't actually do it. He was considering it, and the media went batshit crazy about it. Check it out.
Have you ever heard of somebody getting a preemptive pardon who was innocent of all crime? Who's just an innocent person? Have you ever heard of that? Just somebody getting a blanket pardon and they're an innocent person?
But no, it's the president's own family. It's people that have been covering up for the president in addition to his own family.
Is there an innocent explanation for someone to seek preemptive pardons for family members? Would you do that if you knew you were innocent and just worried about outside forces?
The answer to that is going to be no. If you haven't done anything wrong, you sit there and go, what do you need a preemptive pardon for?
If he pardons people preemptively, he's essentially telling the public that these people have committed crimes. And we may not be aware of what they are, but the pardon is clear evidence that crimes have been committed.
I imagine if he decides to issue these preemptive pardons, it will be cast in a way that he is protecting his family and protecting their reputations from, villainous exterior forces that are against him.
First off, we should just take a deep breath and acknowledge the audacity of a president who's so clearly concerned about his own criminal culpability and that of his family members that pardons are a major obsession with him.
The idea of a kind of prospective pardon, this sort of permanent federal get-out-of-jail-free card, that seems to be what we're talking about in the case of this, right, with Giuliani and his 3 eldest children who, as far as we know, have not been convicted of a crime. Maybe they've committed a lot. And they don't want to face action. I don't know. It's weird. I wouldn't ask for a pardon. I don't think I deserve one because I don't think I've done anything criminal. But where does that come from? That concept that you can just kind of wave your magic pardon wand.
We have Tish James. We have Xavier Becerra. Mimi Rocha is literally my DA in my town. There will be opportunities to prosecute these people regardless if they abuse the pardon power as they are thinking.
Hopefully, Ellie, there will be a skyfall on this entire crime family, and there will be another day for them to die.
The president does indeed pardon, let's say, Rudy Giuliani or any members of his family. Would you see that, and I asked Preet Bharara this question, as essentially an admission of guilt?
I certainly would view it that way. I think millions of Americans would view it that way. If there was no belief in criminality, why would he think a pardon was necessary?
CNN has learned President Biden will pardon his son Hunter Biden.
Adam Schiff there at the end. So all these people, they're all concerned at the moment that Trump was even considering this. Now, I want to be clear on the timeline here. This Fauci thing didn't come out of nowhere. We covered this on the show weeks ago. The Biden was already talking about this. The media was silent, completely silent. He was discussing this, and he was waiting to the very last minute to do this. And so you didn't even have the discussion, the talking point of interesting that Biden's considering this. And we saw what he did with the Hunter thing. He actually said out loud, I will not consider pardoning my son, let alone these other family members he just did literally minutes before Trump took the oath of office. Minutes before. It was like you could count the seconds of the end of his presidency. He did this, and he wasn't even considering it. He said, "No, I'm not doing this. No, not Hunter. Never. I don't do that. I don't take advantage." Now, look, considering something is considering something, right? So Biden lied about that the whole way, but the fact that the media and we saw these clips that you guys just saw, went back to back to back. Just the consideration of doing this made them livid. They were thus, you can't even talk about it. Now, total crickets. So that's the Biden legacy. We're going to get more into his legacy a little later in the show. We got some more admittance from the Democratic Party of how awful and shitty his entire 4 years, probably the worst 4 years we've ever experienced in our lifetimes. I know in my lifetime, probably in many people's lifetimes. And you could probably date it back. Some might say the worst 4 years in the history of our country could be what we just lived through, down to the last minute.